Everybody, welcome back to another episode of E&Ftv. Today we're joined by the brilliant Andrea Saracini, who is an experienced revenue management professional. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi Tom, thank you for inviting me to the show. Actually, I have to say I'm quite excited. I've not been wearing a suit for a couple of weeks, so I feel great.
I was going to say, you look very smart. You look very smart.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for obviously coming on. I mean, we've worked together for a number of years now, and I'd like to say we've become quite good friends. So it's great to have you on the show. Andrea, as you know, and as obviously our audience knows, every Friday we have these episodes which are all dedicated to candidates that are on the market right now. It's all about bringing people together and trying to get as many people back into employment as we possibly can, whether that be through us or it's actually us helping candidates with their direct applications. And that's what we're here to do today. So a great place to start would be to understand a bit more about you, your background, your expertise, and I suppose, obviously, your most recent role. So, yeah, please do. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so when I finished my diploma in business management and tourism, I started to apply for hospitality roles and hotel roles. And I got hired by an important hotel group in Rome, La Great Hospitality Group, which was a group of 5 hotels, which there were 2 4-stars, 2 5-stars, and a 3-star. And of course, I started as a receptionist and made my way forward up to becoming a reservations manager. And it was about 2-3 months that I was in the role as a reservations manager, and one evening, it was a Friday evening, around 6 o'clock, I got a phone call from my managing director, Paolo Argilli, and he said, Andrea, do you mind popping up in my office for a 10-minute meeting? And I went, wow, Friday evening, 6 o'clock, my managing director wants to see me. This doesn't look so good. So you can imagine, I told him, yeah, sure, I'll be there in a second. Yeah. And so I went, and I was a bit nervous. I remember taking the lift and thinking, okay, what does he want from me? Yeah. Especially being as a group reservations manager, not for that much time. I said, I must have done something. So when I opened the door, there were the 3 of them sitting, which was Paolo Argilli, my managing director, yeah, the director of revenue of the hotel group, and the cluster revenue manager of the hotel group. Said, well, this doesn't look great at all. 3 versus 1. They said, okay. So they saw me a bit nervous and they said, Andrea, relax, take it easy, come in and have a seat.
Beads of sweat going down your head.
I said, okay, that's great. So when I sat down, they started to tell me that they were really happy with the performances that I had been doing in reception and as a group reservations manager, and also that I was doing extremely well in the classroom, in the trainings and the courses that they provided. Yeah. And they told me that they had decided that created a new position, which was a assistant revenue manager role, and they had decided to promote me in that position. So that they had given me an internal promotion. And I went, wow. I said, can I refuse it? And they told me, well, you can refuse it, but you don't have a job. So there's no other choice. And I went, okay, then I'll take it.
Yeah, that's a proposal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. And therefore, of course, I had an amazing weekend. And on the Monday morning, I turned up ready for my new challenge. And it's been a great experience because the cluster revenue manager at the time, Matteo, was really willing and a good mentor. So he introduced me on all the aspects of revenue management. He went through with me the strategies of each individual hotel, because There were 5 hotels, but so different to each other.
Right.
And the 4-star and the 5 stars had a lot of F&B and meeting and events spaces. So what he was always saying, revenue managers look at RevPAV, but we go beyond, we look at TrevPAV, because at the time TrevPAV was not something that revenue managers would be looking at like we look at nowadays, but they were already looking at it. So it was interesting and understanding revenue management, also coming from different departments and the importance of it. And it was great because I was new in revenue, and the projects that I was given were interesting. I managed to develop my data analyst skills. I discovered a lot of skills that I didn't have, my meticulous in work, attention to details, and especially analyzing reports and putting some great feedback behind it. After some time that I was in the role, Matteo, the cluster revenue manager, handed in his notice because he was hired by an important international chain to work in Milan, so he had to relocate. And I applied. At this time, I wasn't offered the job, but I applied for his position. And of course, after they saw that I had applied, they gave it to me. And so I became the cluster revenue manager of the hotel group, and I worked close with the director of revenue. Great experience because as a cluster revenue manager, I had more responsibilities on, so I had to prepare the forecast, the business mix, work on the budget, and have discussions with the director of revenue and my managing director. So it was a great experience for the having the age of 23. I was nearly 24 at the time, and after working with the Grave Hospitality Group, I decided to join the Barcel Hotels and Resorts, which at the time that just acquired 2 large properties in Rome and a property in the south of Italy, in Calabria. So it was a seaside location. So I applied for the position. I did the interview and I was offered the job. And it was great since I had already gained a lot of the experience on the Rome market. But it was something more interesting because in Barcello, I could differentiate with markets. So I had the 2 Roman properties plus the seaside resort, which was a different strategy, different forecast, and different business mix. So it was a great experience. And in Barcello, I'll always remember Jordi Alba, that was the director of distribution, and I gained a lot of experience on the distribution channels and looking at them into details. And after working with Barcelo, since in Italy the contracts are not permanent as in the UK, I was hired by a luxury individual hotel group in Rome, which was Trevi Group. And it was just for a maternity cover since the revenue manager had gone on maternity. So it was a temporary contract of 9 months. Mm-hmm. And I joined them, and it was interesting because it was for 6 luxury hotels in the center of Rome. So it was predominantly driving ADR and rather than occupancy. And each hotel was so different to one another, and it had all sorts of different segments inside and interesting segments, which made me learn even more better the understanding and the trends of the Roman market, especially from the luxury perspective. And while I was working for the Trevi Hotel Group, I had decided that I wanted to come to the UK. Since there was more stability, and the next step in revenue management would have been to come and work in the UK. So I started to apply for some jobs, and I got interviewed by Marriott in a hotel in Heathrow, large property, 600 bedrooms with 28 meeting rooms. And I was also contacted by Oceana Hotels, which was a privately owned chain hotel of 4 hotels in Bournemouth, in the south of the UK.
Right.
So I did my first initial interviews. At the time it was Skype. Zoom wasn't even popular. And so we used to use Skype, and after doing both the interviews with Marriott and Oceana, I was quite impressed with the Oceana interview, because I did it with Kevin Wood, which was the managing director of Oceana Group. And in the interview, he managed to transmit me his passion about revenue management and about hospitality. And you know, when you have the feeling that you think Oceana, it's the right place for you because of their drive. And anyway, I did both interviews, and then the following week I was invited for the second and final stage for both interviews, with Oceana and with Marriott. So I booked my flight and I came up in the UK. I did the first interview with Marriott, which was a nice interview. I still have good memories of the interviewers and great team over there. And then I came down to Bournemouth to do an interview with the managing director, which was an interview that just lasted only 6 hours on the first day, where yeah, it was an interview where I had it with Mr. Wood, which was the managing director, the director of sales of the group, Lisa, and the revenue manager that was leaving, Debbie. And they questioned me on everything. They told me to pieces, asked me all type of questions on competencies, behavior, team management, strategy, market understandings, what were my homework, what I had researched. So after 6 hours interview, the managing director said, "Do you have any questions, or would you like to say something?" I said, "Well, I want the job, and I hope that after 6 hours interview, you're going to offer it to me." Well, he said, "Well, we're not yet done." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You still need to meet the director of operations of the group that is in tomorrow morning. So if you don't mind coming to have just half an hour chat with Pat Green, I would appreciate it." So I said, "Yeah, not a problem." So I slept over in Bournemouth, and the following morning went to meet Pat Green, which at the end, it wasn't a half an hour interview, but an hour and a half interview with her as well. So you can imagine 2 hours on the phone on Skype, 6 hours the day before, and another hour when I left. I said, if they don't give me the job, I'm not I don't know what to say. So I left Bournemouth and went back to London to spend some time in London. And 2 days after, I received both proposals from the Marriott as a assistant revenue manager for the group, for the hotel, and Oceana, that I was offered the cluster revenue manager position for the Bournemouth hotels, which were 4. So it was a tough decision because I liked both roles. But the evaluation that I did was that I was new in the UK, so I needed to learn the market and the method of working in the UK. And also I really admired the revenue passion and revenue focus that Oceana did. And I said, I'm going to accept Oceana. Marriott is going to be there anytime in the future. And so I declined the Marriott offer and joined Oceana. And in early 2013, I moved in Bournemouth, where I spent 4 years, 4 interesting and intense years, because it's been a great 4 years. I was brought in to change the revenue management strategy that was quite seasonal and static to a bit more of a dynamic and more corporate environment revenue strategy. So of course, I had to look at the pricing strategy, the business mix strategy. And during my time there, I drove some important projects. For example, we rebranded a 3-star to a 4-star. So it was like a new opening.
Yeah.
And I also gained experience in working with branded hotels, because one of our hotels was a Best Western. So I saw also how the branded hotels worked. So it was a different strategy compared to the other 3.
Right.
And during the time there, I also got involved in the acquisitions of new properties, where we bought a property in France, and also the change of the PMS and implementing my first revenue management system for an hotel group. So exciting times, and I had a nice team. I had a team of 8 people reporting to me, which they were 4 reservation agent, a reservations manager, a groups coordinator, webmaster, and a revenue assistant.
Right.
So it was a very tense and nice 4 years with a lot of projects, and I'm proud of myself that year on year the hotel group managed to grow a significant RevPAR through rate rather than occupancy. So I managed to put a strategy in place that had a strong business mix that drove more profitability through rate. After 4 years, you can imagine, in Bournemouth, I started to look around, and I started to feel that I needed a change and wanted to challenge myself in different markets.
Mm-hmm.
And I was contacted for a temporary role as a consultant for a big hotel chain and service apartment chain, which is the Ascot Sitting Groups in London.
Yeah.
And they had proposed me to work as a cluster revenue manager for the UK cluster hotels for 9 months as a consultant. So I still remember the date, the 16th December of 2016, where I was still working in Oceania, and I had already accepted the offer of Ascot. And I called a meeting with Mr. Wood and Pat Green, and it's been tough to give them the notice. I think it's the only employer I busted into tears. I still get emotional about it. And I told him, sorry that I'm handing in my notice, but I need to work in different markets.
Sure.
And I still remember Pat Green surprised of my decision. Mr. Wood just kept quiet and then turned around and said, no, you need to go. It's time for you to go. I'll let you go, but you're going to work all your notice period, which was 2 months. And I said, don't worry, I'll be loyal until the end. And so after leaving Oceania, I joined the Ascot Group, which I was looking after 4 service apartment hotels and 1 hotel, which is the Cavendish in Piccadilly, which is a 4-star. And it was interesting because finally I was in a different market, the London market, looking after 850 bedrooms in different areas of London, because we had some in South Kensington, some in Barbican, Holborn, Trafalgar, and of course then the Cavendish, that is a well-known hotel in London. And it's been interesting because the strategies between the hotels, as you can imagine, and the business mix was completely different from one to another. and great experience also with working with the Ascot group that have got a great revenue mentality. And so I worked, as I said, it was temporary, so for 9 months, and I helped them in doing the budget and for the following year, and setting up as well for them the new RMSs that they were going to introduce.
Right.
And after working for Ascot, I was attracted by a project in Croydon, which was with the Croydon Park Hotel.
Yep.
I was attracted because it was a hotel that was, they had planned to do a refurbishment. It was a big hotel, 200 bedrooms and 9 conference rooms. Right. And I was attracted by the project because a refurbishment had to occur, and they were planning to take it also branded. And the strategy in Croydon would have been to drive more rate, although in Croydon, the market, as we know, it's not as London, it's quite a tough market. But they had seen the potentials of growing through rate and having the correct business mix. So I joined Croydon, and good experience, but things did not really go the way they had to go, because the hotel was managed by a management company that then after 3-4 months that I was there, they changed their mind, and they said that they were not going to do the renovations or the refurbishment of the hotel, and they started to reduce the staff. So they started to reduce the sales staff, and they then got made redundant the general manager of the hotel, because they decided to manage it from head office rather than having a general manager. So at the time when I saw that they made redundant the general manager, I saw that things were not going in the right direction, and I said maybe it's better to go back into central London. And I applied for the Ambassador Bloomsbury, that it was a central hotel in London, 100 bedrooms hotel. And I had the interview with George Constance, that his background is from sales and revenue. And I was quite impressed of his knowledge and the project that he had for the hotel, because as we know, the Ambassador Bloomsbury Hotel is a 100-bedroom hotel in Houston, and the bed stock in Houston, since King's Cross is a busy area in normal times, goes quite quick. And again, he mentioned that the previous revenue manager was driving more through occupancy rather than rate, and looking at the STR figures and how the market was doing in the area, there was a scope to drive rate and increase RevPAF significantly. So I took the challenge on board, also if it was a small hotel, and restructured the revenue strategy with George and with the sales team, and drove the revenue team for 1 year and 8 months. Great results also there, achieved by me and by the team as a collective, because we had a great, for the time I was there, it was a great RevPAF, but also great TrevPAF. We hit some great records for total hotel. And after 1 year and 8 months that I was there, of course, it being a small hotel, there wasn't much of a career perspective anymore. So I had a chat with George Constance, the general manager, who kindly made me understood that he would have offered me a better position, but there wasn't any other better position. It's not that they were going to buy other hotels, and it could have been a cluster role. So I decided to look for a different role and go back into cluster revenue management role. but in a different market. I was tempted by the luxury London market.
So,
And applying, I got hired by the H Club in London that they were looking at the time for a revenue manager that would have looked after the London property and the property in Los Angeles. So I got hired, funny enough, just before lockdown started. I think I sent the contract a week before, and then I started the week after, and then after 4 days, lockdown happened. And then I worked from home all during lockdown because I wasn't on furlough. And until the 31st of July when I got made redundant.
right. And I suppose, obviously, with such a varied background, you know, I can imagine that you've been trying to, I suppose, apply those different skills into cross-industry roles in your search. But of course, your passion and your love is always going to be revenue management, which I know, obviously, catching up with you every single week, we're obviously trying very hard to try and figure out how to get you back into employment, whether that be obviously me putting you forward or, of course, you applying directly and then me helping with various things. But how, from your perspective and from your experience, can you tell the audience, I suppose, what your experience has been like on the job market at the moment?
Well, the experience in the job market is tough, Tom, because there are many people that, unfortunately, as me, lost their jobs, and hospitality is struggling big time at the moment.
Yeah.
It started to come back, but not recruitment, as we know, is on hold, especially on senior positions as revenue managers, sales directors, and of course the applications that you send around also in different industries are a lot. I think I've sent 2,500 applications in different sorts of roles, from basic roles to senior roles in different sectors, and the bounce back rate is quite high, but it's also because there are many applicants applying for one single role. So it's a tough market, but it will come back right. I never lose hope, and confident that it's going to come back right at the end. Yeah. But the scary part is that you say, okay, let's switch industry, let's change industry, or let me go back to basic, to a junior role. And of course, when you see a revenue manager applying for a more junior role, I think the HR manager receiving the CV would say, well, he's looking for a job, but once the market is going to be back and running, how long is he going to stay in the role? Is it worth even contacting him? Because I know that he's going to disappear soon. So yeah, it's a tough market. It's a mixture, but you never have to lose your hope on it.
No, I mean, as I say, every single week we sort of catch up. You're always doing something to keep yourself going and keep your mind busy and so on. So I suppose, again, I know what's been happening with you, but in terms of the audience, again, I think it would resonate with them and also actually give them a couple of ideas. So tell us exactly what's been sort of keeping you motivated, or more importantly, how have you been keeping yourself motivated?
Well, during lockdown, I was working because I was working for the H Club, and as everybody in lockdown did, I was following webinars and also doing online courses. And then from when I stopped working, since being a revenue manager for me is not a job, it's a passion, and I really like it as a role. When I go to work, it's not just about a work, it's going to do my passion. What I normally do on a Sunday evening, I pick 5 hotels, which randomly I pick a 4-star in London, a 5-star in London, a 3-star, and 2 regional hotels. So it could be Bournemouth and Brighton and sometimes different regions. And I choose my hotels and I decide to pretend to be the cluster revenue manager for them from the Monday morning. So once I've chosen my hotels, I wake up in the Monday morning, and believe it or not, I still put my suit on a Monday morning, pretending that I'm going to work, just to help me mentally focused. And I pretend to be their revenue manager of the group. So what I do, I set the strategy, pricing strategy, and I look at the different business mix for each hotel. I also do assumptions on forecast and budget for 2021, and I keep track. I manage them for 15 days, and after that, what I do, I choose another cluster and I do the same thing. It's just keeping busy, keeping focused on my revenue skills, analyzing, seeing also the trends that current revenue managers do, and get an idea or keep up to date with the market.
Yeah, definitely. And again, we've spoken about this a couple of times, but I think it's so impressive that you've sort of kept that discipline where you do sort of get your official cluster or unofficial cluster, if you like, look at your comp sets, you're doing the data analysis, you're looking at the mitigating pitfalls and so on and so forth. And I think it's absolutely brilliant. And again, I've not heard of any other candidate of mine or anybody else for that matter continue to keep their mind engaged at that level. It's very impressive. I suppose, again, it's so important. I'm sure you'd agree with this, but it's so important at a time like this when we are at home, when we are locked down and all the rest of it, to keep that brain of ours, especially in a profession like revenue management, keeping that brain going and engaged is hugely important, right?
Yeah, no, it is important to keep your brain engaged in something, and especially if you can do it in something that you like, as you say, in passion. The day passes quick, and at the end of the day, yes, you're out of work, but you've done something useful. You go to bed and you say, well, I am on it. I'm seeing what the market is. I don't need to have a look at webinars or read articles and see what's happening. I can see it by managing the property, these properties. Okay, I do not know the occupancy levels of the properties, but I do have a rough idea of what's the London occupancy levels in hotels at the moment.
Sure.
And I know, and seeing the pricing that they had, the hotels that I manage have, it's not great ADRs and RevPAV. But it's keeping busy and you feel satisfied when you go to bed. Sometimes I go to bed tired because I've been looking too much at their figures and thinking and doing assumptions that you say, wow, it's as if I had a really work day. So yeah, it's keeping motivated, and important is keeping your mind on your passion and not losing your skills.
No, definitely. And I suppose that actually brings me quite nicely on to my next question, or the final question, which is, there's a lot of people obviously in a very similar situation at the moment. And something that we like to end with is sort of what advice you would give to other people as you're a candidate on the market, from your perspective, again, from your experience. What advice would you give to other people at the moment that are on the job market?
Well, the advice, I've seen the videos and everybody says, first of all, the first and foremost thing that I would say is, don't lose your hope, be positive, and we shall all be in the environment back working soon rather than later. I'm sure that with 2021, things are going to come back slowly, normal, and everybody will manage to get back in employment. In regards to tips, I know that many candidates have advised to search on websites and or join LinkedIn Premium, which is a good way to find jobs. My advice to revenue manager is, why don't you do just what I do? Pretend to be a cluster revenue manager of 5 different properties, and get your spreadsheets back up and running and do your assumptions, and you're practicing your skills. I know that it's not a job, but you're still practicing your skills, and you're keeping your head busy.
Yeah.
Believe me that when you start with one cluster, you will have the passion to switch on and move to another cluster and see what other hotels are doing. That's my advice.
And again, I think it's hugely impressive that what you've been doing to keep your mind busy. I completely agree with the fact that, you know, try and stay as positive as you can. Things will start to pan out. 2021, we just have to hope and get through it together, I suppose. I suppose that's the message, isn't it, at the moment? But obviously, with regards to any employers out there that are thinking about recruiting or planning to at the moment, or haven't started advertising yet, and you're looking for an experienced revenue management professional with not only single property, but also multi-property experience, ranging from 3 all the way through to 5-star. If you're looking for anybody that's dealt with teams, managed stakeholders, and knows exactly what they're doing in various different markets, please do get in contact with Andrea directly. Please, you know, don't go through us, go straight to him. I'll put his details below. Click on his link, contact him, because I know he'll be really keen to talk to you. So any employers out there thinking about it, give him a call, drop him a message on LinkedIn. Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today. It's great to finally get you on the show.
Thank you, Tom, and it's been a real pleasure being on the show with you.
And guys,